Hey guys, Coach Berto here. As many of you guys know, 2017 was a contest prep year for me. However, what a lot of you guys don't know is that this is something that I set myself up for somewhere in the middle of 2016. So what I'm here to tell you guys is that if you're planning on competing in 2018 and you're planning on using Team 3DMJ as your coaching service, that you better get a hold of us now. This is to ensure that you are in the right position to maximize your prep, both in regards to the effectiveness of the prep, so that we can not just be effective, but also educate along the way, and so that we can have fun. So don't be one of those people who get a hold of us in January and it's a situation that we just have to turn down. The time is now, folks. You will not regret it. You will be glad that you thought of this and set yourself up for success ahead of time.
Hi 3DMJers, this is Andrea Valdez and you're listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. Today I'm joined by Alberto Nunez and Eric Helms as we discuss what it means to build a professional career online and in person as a coach, trainer, or an athlete seeking sponsorships. We're calling this one career versus clickbait. To start, we talk about how 3DMJ has built a name for itself as a team and how we've been able to serve our mission statement as a group and as individuals with our own separate platforms over the past 8 years or so. You'll hear a bit about how the 3DMJ community started, from the bodybuilding.com forums to local shows to YouTube and eventually here on this very podcast. And you'll also hear about how Alberto and Eric envision themselves in the fitness landscape, how they've grown their independent followings, why that's important, and how you can hopefully do the same for your own business or brand in the fitness industry. It's a little bit out of the box for our typical podcast, but we think it's hugely important for anyone on the internet these days, especially in an industry that's based so heavily on appearances and numbers. So let's get into it. As usual, if you have any feedback or comments on this episode, you can head over to 3dmusclejourney.com and leave it there under podcast number 68 or over on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/team3dmj. So here is career versus clickbait with Alberto Nunez and Eric Helms. As a whole, 3DMJ has a pretty big following that we've developed over the past, is it 7 years? 8 years?
7 and a bit.
7 and a bit. So the first socially outward thing was Jeff's blog.
Yes.
Okay. And that's before social media, so in which case it just like existed. No?
The bodybuilding.com forums, that was Eric and I way back when. And that is so huge. So much came from that.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We were, for those who haven't heard the perennial story of the 3DMJ.
Let's hear it.
There was Jeff doing his own thing, and he was coming back with a new perspective on the sport after a 3-year semi-retirement. And he had a blog that he called 3D Muscle Journey, and it not only featured his return to the sport and his renewed perspective, having a little bit more balance and what would argue a healthier approach, but also he was featuring other people. He was trying to create a community, and I think that really spoke to us. He had what was called the natural movement, where myself, Berto, Lane Norton, Luke Ellis, a bunch of people who were kind of active in the community back in the day in like the late 2000s for natural bodybuilding. We're posting, and he'd feature us all on there and do a little interview, make some videos, cool stuff. Before that, Berto and I, we met each other 2007 on the bodybuilding.com forums because we were prepping at the same time for the same show on the same stage.
2006.
That's true, because prep started before 2007 began. That's right.
Yeah.
Don't you get that wrong, Eric?
Well, I'm just kind of basically... That was the equivalent of getting your anniversary wrong with your wife, so that I apologize.
I know, it was obviously...
He's in the doghouse after this. Yes.
That was a really big deal. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. Which, if you actually go to Bert's house, the doghouse is the entire house, so not too bad.
Lots of freedom.
So we had, I think, back then, in terms of the way it was circa 2005 to as late as 2010 on the bodybuilding.com forums, there was a subforum called Contest Prep, which wasn't intended to be this way, but it just happened to be basically a bunch of natural bodybuilders who were just sharing their entire journeys. We weren't like anti people being enhanced or anything like that, but it was just a really cool, unique community. And I think that's probably where Berto and I, that's what we got exposed to. And, correct me if I'm speaking for you, as far as kind of the feel of what the sport's about, was actually the online feel. And it was super supportive. Everyone had each other's backs. We all had the same goals, even though we're from vastly different parts of the country, different, sexes, ethnic backgrounds, the whole 9 yards. And but we all kind of shared this one common thing. And then when we actually went to compete, parts of that were there, but probably one big lacking thing was like the evidence-based side of it. Like we had a pretty kind of cool familial feel in our first show. It was a kind of mom and pop silver and black show. They've been around for a while, INBA and in California, in the Bay Area. But a lot of shows didn't have the same kind of, sharing of information that I think we wanted to try to bring to the community. And, with Lane Norton's influence on the forums back in the day, we thought that was something we wanted to bring. So we had pretty large followings on our contest prep logs, Berto larger than mine. And we each kind of had a different feel that was really just based on us sharing who we were. Like Berto was kind of seen as the people's bodybuilder who got really, really shredded and did things very wrong and then learned to do them very right, and was always humble and also worked very hard. He had the no crying log, which he, of course, cried in, which is bodybuilding. And then I was the wannabe, Dr. Joe Lane Norton science guy for a long time, until I became less wannabe and more actually. And then I think we shared a bit of a bromance that kind of leaked out, and that's when we started to get together and kind of had the the vision for what 3DMJ would hopefully become.
And at that point, what was the vision?
Bert, you want to fill those gaps in? I've been yapping too much.
Yeah, well, let me confirm that. I think my issue was, at the time, my biggest, the thing that was missing the most was that community. Like, I was that weirdo that was at the gym 5-6 times a week, and training like he was training for something even when he wasn't. Eating 6 meals a day, that sort of stuff. And the closest thing I had to feeling connected to something was, at the time, the WNBF magazine, that quarterly publication. But everyone felt so distant at the same time. It's like you would read about this person, that person, and it's like, but like I don't feel like I can interact with these folks. Like it's kind of cool to see the sport you love in the publication, but I needed peeps. And that's exactly what that section supplied for us. It was just as Eric described. It was a place where, you can, that one thing that would cross your mind many times over the course of the day, your bodybuilding. It was the one place you could really just let all that out, and it was super cool, super supportive. A lot of people who are still rolling strong in the fitness community either started there or our little corner of the fitness community, or they at least it's pretty crazy, because there's a lot of people who maybe they didn't interact much on the boards, but I will run into many folks who are now kind of doing their thing, and they're like, yeah, I used to follow you guys way back when on that specific platform. But yeah, Eric was my first real, bodybuilding friend. And it was so crazy, because I remember when I saw I was super excited. I'm like, this dude's in Roseville, California. Let me put that on Google. How close is Roseville? Because I was living in the Bay Area. I'm like, dude, scored. That's about 2 hours away. It felt so close at the time. So we did our shows, kind of together, but not really. Although I think my second season, which Eric took off, I would go up there and visit him quite frequently. And then the very next year, he went up on stage, and I was there pretty much every single weekend. It seemed like I would make that drive, try to get the weekends off so I can go hang out with my bodybuilding friends, and just good times. But yeah, we loved the feeling that just between him and I, we kind of gave each other. And I think without knowing, we kind of wanted.
That's going to sound so bad, but go ahead.
I was going to say,
Tell me
yeah,
about
I
your
was going to
bromance.
say something. But yeah, we developed a bromance. And
it was it was
wanted,
the mid 2000s of California. I think
it's a long time ago, yeah.
No, we were young. We wanted we wanted natural bodybuilding orgy, basically, right?
Yeah.
So
Just a phase.
we were out looking for friends. We're recruiting, basically. We really were. We're trying to bring people into this, and that's when, I think we started to stalk Jeff Alberts, and then it's funny. We approached Jeff like we knew how he was at his first show almost, and he was kind of like taken back by that, like, who are these crazy kids? And we're talking about the forums and this. Do you know who Straight Flex is, and that sort of stuff.
He was very overwhelmed by our presence, I think.
Very much, and he was totally dieted at the time, which didn't help. But yeah, no, we just kind of it was quite insane at the time what those forums did for me in regards to just expanding my community, even though like Eric was like 80% of that. And I recall when Eric competed that in his second season, we basically took we went on this little tour that was like shows all over Northern California, even up into Washington. And we were just like recruiting folks, and it was Jeff, it was Luke Ellis, it was Scott Kluth. And that's kind of where I guess all of this started. We were just yearning for community. We wanted to be a part of something. We wanted to, and like looking back now, it's like I think we wanted to expand our network of freaks like us, but at the same time, I think without knowing, I think we did a lot to help our little niche within a niche like grow as well. But no, to confirm what Eric said, it was we just wanted some bodybuilding homies. We love this stuff and couldn't get enough of it, and it just kind of organically happened, which I'm glad it happened that way at the end.
Were the forums private, or could anybody read what was on there?
Anybody could read it, but if you wanted to post, you had to actually join. So you could lurk as a guest.
Okay.
But if you wanted to post, then you had to become a member.
And there was no smartphones, really? No, there wasn't. So
that was the snake phone still
in
the early 2000s, because I was in high school.
Straight up, yeah. Like you wouldn't get responses until like the evening, when everyone got off of work and they would run straight to their computer and just like type away, see what this person is doing, what that person is doing. It was great, to be honest. It's good times.
There were whole different strategies around the forums. I mean, like this was back when Facebook existed, but it was a thing for college kids.
Still college, yeah.
Yeah, and like I didn't get on there till 2008 or 9. It's like right around the time, and I started out. It was not
MySpace.
Oh yeah, actually I did have a MySpace account. Yeah. So that was the only social media platform there really was, and there was much more activity on the forums. And like Berto's not kidding. Like there's like 6 degrees of separation that for most fitness industry professionals who I know these days, kind of in the bodybuilding powerlifting sphere, eventually comes back to bodybuilding.com at some point.
Yeah. Which
is kind of crazy. So like we leveraged our forum, our training logs, and like Berto and I would each almost every year and a half have to recreate them, because after you get a certain amount of posts or pages or views, I can't remember which one, you'd hit a limit and it would force you to make a new thread, and it was like this big deal. And we would have links in our signature to our old training logs, because they were like these monumental 2-year journeys. And there was just this atmosphere on the forums of like being transparent about who you were and the struggles you were going through. And I don't want to take credit for it, but I think Berto and I were some of the first people who were talking about like the struggle, and really, really being very honest about what it was like, and not just kind of making it all seem like an animal pack ad. Like, I'm like, we weren't necessarily not glorifying the grind and the struggle, but we were just being very real about it and not trying to act like we could suck it up and push through. Like we would eventually, but we'd also talk about like today was awful, or not so bad, or these are the positives, these are the ups and downs. And I think that was so well received, probably more well received than I would have expected it to be, that taught us both to really show who we were online as kind of a way of, letting people in. And I think that really kind of bled into the way we still run 3DMJ to this day, with being honest and who we are, and not trying to put on necessarily a front. And I think it's helped us create a community. I mean, that's always something we've tried to do, because the business always came second to community building from the get-go.
Okay, so why did that die?
I think honestly, it just didn't die. It just moved. I think it moved into, like, I don't think the forums quite really found an equivalent footing for a long time. Like, the closest thing to today is like the Facebook groups. And there's some hugely active groups like Eat, Train, Progress, things like that. Yeah, the body recomposition ones. I think that is the closest equivalent to it. The funny thing is they're not actually quite as good in some ways as the forums were. Like, if you want to search for an old thread, you could easily find that, and people would like have curated posts with all the different threads where like you could see training programs, debates, all kinds of stuff, Q&As that were 6, 7, 8 years old, and like they had this whole thing of like, look, don't even ask questions, just search first, because the searching tool was easy and it worked well, and there were all these pinned posts at the top of each subforum. And like on Facebook, searching's a nightmare. Finding old posts is almost impossible sometimes, and you can only pin one thing at the top of any group. So it's still not. It's funny thing is, it's just not even as good of a platform for that type of communication. So that, I don't think it died. It just moved around. Like, I would say there was a period where YouTube had a very similar feel to being transparent, sharing your story, doing your thing. And I think people like, Matt Ogus circa 2011, 2013, yourself, and a few others also cultivated that same feel. We actually came late to the party based on seeing, some of our own athletes' success on there, and people who followed us, because we went from forums and just locally on our website to Facebook, and then looked up one day and we're like, oh shit, YouTube's a thing. And we came a little late to that in probably 2011 or 2012.
Yeah, it's funny too, because everything that you guys said happened in like the whole, people actually followed you. Like when I was building my YouTube channel in 2013, I felt that same way. Like, these are, everyone that's commenting, I know them. I know this name. I know what they look like. I know their personal struggles, probably because they've replied to my emails. Like, I knew them the same way that you guys, I'm sure, like, you knew the people in the forums. And I haven't felt that way since. I don't know if you guys still feel that way, but like, there was definitely, I don't know if it's like a chicken or egg. Like, we needed community so bad that we made it at certain points in our lives. Like, you guys created that community in the forums. I feel like in YouTube I made, 10, 15,000 people that were like my people, and I knew them. And nothing was more important than for me to reply to every single thing I could possibly do. And now there was a point where I couldn't do it anymore, and we've talked about it before too, like, I lost track and I had to go away, like, for emotional reasons or whatever. But there was a good year and a half of my life where I was giving and taking with these people, and it was like we were this little ecosystem. And I know that the way you guys talk, not just you guys, Ryan Doris, Lane Norton, like the way I'll talk about the forums, which I know they're younger than you guys, but they used to read all y'all shit, right? And, or at least Ryan would tell me, like, he's known Berto since then and stuff. And it feels like you guys have transitioned very well from that into what now is, of course, you still have your communities, but you'll have this like much, much bigger outreach now. I never got mine back, but it seems like you guys have done a really good job carrying it year after year with the trends. And 3D's done a good job as a group, right? But personally, I've never felt as close as I did then, and I just wonder if you guys feel that same way right now, as close as you did to the forums, to anybody.
Man, it's just so different now. It's
right?
just so different. It's very different because the forums, I remember coming home after work being overwhelmed within, I guess because I had to respond to like 15 people on
and
my
you had
forums.
to, or you felt personally terrible, right?
But they were my people too.
Exactly.
Like this was in the forum. It was only like 15 people. It's like it wasn't even that. Whereas now it's like, if I go through all my DMs on Instagram every day,
you can't.
Every there's a platform here, platform there.
Yeah.
Man, it would be overwhelming. So the dynamic sure has changed, but like Eric said, like there's only so many. Like, man, the more I stop and think about it, it's like, yeah, that person came from the forums. Yeah, that person came from the forums. Like, they might not know it, but a lot of the people who have helped us generate or help keep the good 3D muscle journey word going, they were, I guess, disciples of the forums without necessarily like knowing. Like, for example, like Matt helped us a great deal. And I think Matt was even on the forums just slightly.
He used to read all stuff.
Yeah, so it's crazy how that it just snowballed into like what it is today.
Yeah.
But if I trace it back, it started, like how it started was so like innocent and so simple and so basic. We'll never get that back. But I think, like you said, that's one thing Eric and I have done a good job of doing, is we've adapted to what's next, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's an important takeaway. Like there's been 5 to 10 people the last 3 years each that like are like way above and beyond me, and as far as like numbers, followers, whatever. And they'll come up to me, and I'm like, oh hey, they're not gonna know who I am. And they're like, I used to watch you in 2013. I'm like, what? And like Nick Bear over here, who came up, like as y'all know, he made a gym here. He's got Bear Performance Nutrition, like all this shit going on. He's like, I used to watch your videos, and I was like, what? You know, that girl Meg squats and Chelsea lifts. If I look at old videos, they've been commenting on my stuff like, go get them, girl. And I'm like, oh shit, look at them now. And I think that community feel, I feel like we have that in 3D, but it moves. Do you guys feel like you have that individually?
It's different, and some ways are the same. I think a huge part of that is just logistics. Like Berto was saying, there's a difference between having 50 active forum members who you stay up with, who you are a peer with, you know, and everyone is, you know, there are people who are more respected. Like we literally had green rep bars, you know, and you could rep each other when you gave. Yeah. Well, you know, it was a peer-to-peer thing though. That was what was cool about it. So how many posts you had was one thing, but if you had a bunch of green ticks next to your name, that means you give the community a lot, is useful advice, people appreciate it, and they actually take the time to click, I'd like to add your reputation. And the higher your rep is, the more rep points you can give to someone else, or you can neg them and bring them down. So we had this, it was like likes and dislikes that stuck with you. Okay. You know? And it was much more, and it was based on interactions versus you have a great physique or anything like that. Of course, that factored into it, but because it was like it was rare that you could actually see someone's pictures or videos. We didn't have smartphones; they're almost never uploaded. The data storage would max out what you could attach to a post immediately, so you could post progress pictures, which you'd only see every month. And then I'm like, oh my god! I was like, did you see? He actually looks like this, and you could have your little avatar, which was small, but like. You know, Body Space was actually a late addition to bodybuilding.com, and it was just the forums for a while, and the Body Space was like kind of interesting, but it never really took off. And then that's when you could actually see someone's physique more regularly. So it was very much based on the actual way you interacted in your community. And like, you know, Alan Aragon was a mod. He was a moderator, you know, and he was he had more rep points than anyone else in the world. Same thing with Lane Norton. So the community was structured around your ability to like argue with people and help people and make good points and also share useful information. And there were like, and companies knew this too. There were supplement reps, and that was another thing you could become. Like every supplement company that wasn't a big name, the way they came up was similar strategy to what they do now of creating kind of that tribal marketing and using social media to create, you know, a following instead of trying to get, you know, a big distribution deal. really kind of the equivalent of working out of your trunk. They did that on the forums. They would they would give free supplements to active, respected community members, and those community members would, if they wanted to, and if they, if they sold out, it was very obvious. That's another thing. It's like, I remember a bunch of people who were board reps for certain supplement companies, and they were really allowed to say what they wanted because, they wouldn't take the job if you wouldn't let them, and then no one would trust them if they just gave bullshit advice. They'd be like, yeah, I like this product, not this one. And so supplement companies would have this kind of like ground level marketing through the forum. So it was just a very, like when people talk about how things weren't sophisticated before social media, they were. It was just a different platform, in a different way.
Yeah.
But anyway, I kind of got off topic. So logistically, some of it is that we can't keep that same community feel because, like Berto said, I don't even look at my DMs on Instagram because there's too many.
Yeah.
And if I click on my messages on Facebook that aren't from my friends, so like they're from a friend of a friend or whatever the kind of the hidden ones are, there's just too many. I can't do it. So what I've had to do is kind of just embrace the fact that while yes, I'm a member of the community and I'm actively participating in it and I'm still training hard and all that stuff, I kind of have to accept the fact that I am seen as a leader in the community. And that's, by design and also just by the way things have gone. And that, so it's interesting because a lot of my people who I see as peers and who I interact with on a regular basis are the same people who I saw back in the day who are now also leaders in their own way or respect, or maybe actually, and some of them, like I remember, like Chuckles 345. I think that is Peter Fitchin's old name. Yeah. Pete's an NGA pro and has his doctorate now. So like, I remember when we were both doing our bachelor's degree and we were both like, skinny kids who were trying to get a physique, and now we're both like less skinny kids with a doctorate. So it's good. So things have changed, but I still have that community and I still have that tight knit group of people. Like I follow Bathtub on Instagram, who is, who's Brett, and
Brett.
His name was Bathtub.
And he's back, and he, I remember when he was competing as like a teen, and now he's actually competing as a pro, just recently actually. So people have moved around, and I still have the same peer group, but it's kind of, the interactions I have with people who see me primarily as a leader, can't be the same, unfortunately. I feel like it, like not that I don't respect them or interact with them, or also as a teacher, I feel like I learn from people with I'm teaching them, but just because I have to acknowledge the fact that I'm putting out a video or a piece of information to 30,000 plus people on Instagram, or 20,000 plus people on Facebook, or if I make a YouTube video, 65,000, or if I appear on Omar's channel, 600,000, or this podcast, we might get, for this episode, we might get 30,000 downloads. So it's like, it's logistically, you simply can't have that same sense. But I still think some of the principles of being yourself, being open and honest, and doing it for the same reasons, I think very early on, whether we had stated it or not, Berto and I had a mission statement. And then really early on, one of the first things we created was a mission statement for 3DMJ. That was super early. That was 2009. We created a mission statement. And it was way too wordy back then, but the core of it hasn't changed. And I think, what a lot of training people call a brand, which we as really just see as, presenting ourselves to the world in the way that is relevant to our community, is something that we kind of just did back then because we were rewarded and it felt honest. And now it's very intentional, and we have to make sure we stay true to it because we're not as connected in the same way to the community. So the way I think we have kept the community following is by still being true to what our original goals were and adapting them as they are today based on what we've learned, who we're becoming and growing as individuals and as a group, and also the realities of the community and the landscape and the way we can interact through different platforms.
Yeah. And I think before we keep going with that stuff, we should maybe address why this is important. Like what you hate to say and what kind of sucks, but it's just life and the way it is we obviously have a lot of athletes. We also have a lot of coaches that listen to this podcast, that consume our information, that want to be in our position one day. And you have to make money to have a business and have this be your occupation. And if people don't know who you are, nobody hires you. And so as much as we say it's our mission statement, it's never been about the money, that's true, right? And it isn't. But the thing is, once it becomes your livelihood, you can't completely ignore it, right? And the flexibility you have within that is finding, first and foremost, the way that I get my word out about me. You have lots of options, right? There's some people that don't like video. There's some people that don't like Instagram. There's some people that have great blogs that you never see their picture barely, So, but I think the crux of the community creation is what we're talking about. And the reason, again, that's important is, again, if nobody knew who the four of you guys were, 3D couldn't go on. Or it would go on only after hours when all your work and family stuff's done, and therefore it almost maybe would never grow enough for you guys to be coaches full time.
And this is where I think a lot of people get it wrong because things move so fast.
Yeah.
Is that they want it all now. Whereas like I've been in the fitness industry long enough. I'd say playing a role in it since 2006, but kind of paying attention since like 1999.
Yeah.
And people come and go. People don't understand that. People come and go. Like it will use you and then just
fast.
Really fast. So I think without really knowing, because we didn't necessarily plan for a lot of this. None of us 3D MJ coaches, we were just kind of doing what we loved. I think because of that, it catered to longevity. And I think that's huge. That's huge. It's like that's huge. It's like you got 100,000 followers on Instagram this year, but is that really sustainable? Like, are you? I think the big one is, like, you see that word being thrown around quite frequently, but value. Like, and I think there's a lot of different skills between all us coaches that we all have that not many other people can do. Like, not everyone can be a Brad Loomis. Not everyone can be a Jeff Alberts, a Helms, and Andrea. We all have our unique set of skills that I feel cater to the long term, and I think without knowing, we took a long time to develop those. And I think at the time we had enough time. We were in no rush. It's like there's no platform there where we can get 200,000 followers on YouTube, right?
We've never been about entertainment.
No.
Well, YouTube doesn't have to be entertainment. It can be education. But
it can. But I think it's just you're gonna have to look at different metrics. People who some people have a great long-term following, being very unique entertainers, like Dom Mazzetti is a great example.
I love that guy.
There's some awesome stuff out there that I really like, but I think a lot of people get it twisted and end up playing themselves because they go, right, if I want to help people, I need a lot of followers. To get a lot of followers, I need to do some form of entertainment. And then you're not being consistent, and you're not providing the value that you originally said you were, and you're not adhering to your own mission statement. And that just confuses people or turns them off.
Yeah.
It comes off as disingenuous even when you don't intend that. So, like, I don't think we've never been about entertainment. And I think that slows your initial growth but actually extends your career. And, like, if you want to get into some form of entertainment, then you just got to be about that. And I think people who have quote unquote kept it real and been an entertainer in the fitness industry have done really well. Like Dom said, he's a great example. Like, what you're getting into. I smile right when I open his video before I even freaking have finished it. I know it's going to be amazing, and I know he puts a lot of effort, and he has a very consistent yet funny, and funny is always surprising to you in some way, or we wouldn't laugh, kind of thing. And I think for people who want to be an information provider and or a leader or to get out there and help people, they have to find a way to do that is digestible. And I think a huge part of that is coming across in a very real way. I think that's something we understood very early on. Not that you have to be 100% transparent, because I think that's kind of what got really popular in the YouTube community for a while. But I think just honest. And honesty isn't the same thing as transparency. You can still set boundaries and be comfortable with what you do and don't want to show. Like, I'm probably much less transparent than I used to be, just now that I've got more of a private life, and I just don't necessarily want to have all my business out there, but I'm still very honest about everything that I do, just as an example.
Yeah. I mean, I want to start a coaching business. I want to be, and I think that's even confusing, right? As I was about to say, like, there's people who want to start a coaching business, and there's people who want to be this whatever level of fitness entrepreneur, which basically, if you're getting down to it, is what you'd call an affiliate marketer, right? When I think fitness entrepreneur, I either think you're selling other people's shit or you're selling like clothes or something, but you're not actually selling information. And then there is someone who wants to be this coach or wants to do these online programs or wants to, whatever. But we talk about self-awareness a lot, but I think you do, like you said, have to identify, am I an entertainer or am I trying to help people? Right? That's a really good distinction. But at the same time, within the 3 or 4 things that I just mentioned, like, am I selling someone else's supplements? Am I selling my own t-shirts? Am I selling an information product, or am I selling coaching services? You need to pick the thing and write it out, right? Like 3D was never about, like you said, not entertainment, but we also were never about a clothing brand. We were never about supplements. We were never about that. And I think a really big early on one when people are just like blasting shit outward is, here's me. Look at all the things I can do in all these 12 areas, when like you're not really good at any of them, or you're not very clear about any of them, right? I think you said that, being clear about what you stand for, Eric, being important in that way.
Consistent, yeah.
Consistent, yeah.
And yeah, that's like going back. Also, clarity is important as well. More so for you, because that's where it starts. Like if you want to provide, like, the way you make money is providing value, especially long term. And the value you provide is going to be dictated by your mission statement. And that's where the clarity comes in. Like early on, we had a very specific mission statement about what we were doing, and we always knew what we were going to do. I think a lot of people these days approach it as, let me get a following, and then I'll leverage that.
Yeah.
And like, if I get Insta famous, then I can get people to give me affiliate deals, or I can sell things, or I'll get approached, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, opportunities probably will come your way if you're Insta famous, but I think the conversion rates, the quality of them, how long they last, are going to be way less. Like, you're not going to have, like, Alan Aragon's got a research review that's been around almost a decade now. That didn't happen because he developed an Insta famous career and a Facebook following, and then someone was like, hey, I'd like you to write a research review and I'll give you a piece of it. And I think if you look at all the long-term successful people, they've stayed true to a specific mission statement. They're very clear about who they are. They're consistent in their branding, and they never waver, or any changes are extremely organic and due to real life circumstances, needs, or changes in what they believe or find to be true, versus what can I do to get a following to then find opportunities. And I think if you have to take a little more ownership, create opportunities, create a vision, and then work towards it, versus trying to get to the top and then see what happens. Because then you're not really in control. Your brand's going to go in a direction. All of a sudden you'll have to change who you are to fit the opportunity that came your way, right? Which seems completely disingenuous. Like, all of a sudden you're wearing new shirts, or all of a sudden you're doing, exercises with this weird band, or something like that. Like, you're doing something because you got some awesome monetary deal, which is great, but it might actually be more harmful in the long run. And it just cheapens your value.
And Eric, here's the thing that when you do exactly what you mentioned, the people who are your followers, they actually become more so, not necessarily a follower, but it's a community. And they're like freaking lifers. Like, I'll tell people that, I'm sure I have 60,000 followers on Instagram, It's not that much relative to other people, but my 60,000, they're gung ho. They are absolutely gung ho. And there's just something different about the people who come to talk to me at say a fitness expo versus, I don't know, I'm not going to say any names, but like versus that other person who has 3 times as many followers. And that all goes back to basically it might be different platforms, but you have the same Eric from, 7 years ago, the same Berto from 7 years ago. And people see that, especially as the fitness industry goes through all these trends. They see that, hey, this dude's kind of just done the same thing this whole time. And I really like this dude, and I want to support him in what he does. And I appreciate what they do because, yeah, it just becomes quite obvious at a certain point that I wouldn't say
you
it's
can tell
easy
from the
to
outside.
sell out. Yeah.
You can tell from the outside, like if I go on, and like 60K is a fair amount in the fitness industry. But I've seen people with a similar amount, let's say maybe 100K, which is only like 40% more, right? If I do my math right. But if they haven't been doing what we're talking about and they've been going for kind of the whole insta-famous first mission statement, later approach, if you look at the comments on one of their most popular videos, it's people talking about that person, right? To each other. Or making statements about them as though there's some kind of third party. They don't treat them like a person,
Yes.
But if you look at Berto's post, even the ones that have like hundreds of comments, they're talking to Berto, asking him questions, even if he can't necessarily respond to everything, which I think he did a pretty good job for his following to do to some degree. They're interacting with him versus, people getting together at the nail shop and talking about the Kardashian show. I think like there's a lot of people who could have a lot more respect for me, who have advanced degrees and extremely good physiques or very strong or have successful businesses who have Kardashianed themselves and have basically just played themselves. And I don't necessarily think they realize that by going for not being consistent and not staying with the archetype that got them to where they are today, and by actually changing who they are based on what has happened, that they are becoming inaccessible to people. Sure, you can kind of have this feel of fame and you might get more following, but you lose all your power. You become some force out there. Like, what is Brad Pitt doing these days? Oh, he's doing crazy stuff. Like, I have no connection to Brad Pitt. He's just simply an entertainment piece. Like, I want to find out about your divorce because it's crazy and stuff that's nuts. Like, if you're in the fitness industry and people are talking about you as though you're not in the same room in a post about your personal life, you're probably doing something wrong. People are, talking shit about like what's going on, like you're some kind of reality show star.
Yeah.
That unless that's your goal.
That's
like
what
if that's
say.
Your goal, but that's also not. But if your goal is to sell information and be a leader, you're not doing that. At best, you're just distracting from that stuff. At worst, you're devaluing and actually losing engagement because your followers don't match your value. What they care about is not what you're putting out,
Yeah. And this could sound, I guess, not scary. Yeah, like scary and overwhelming to like, if of the 30,000 people listening to this, let's say 1,000 of them want to be online coaches full time, or maybe they're personal trainers at their gym or whatever. What's good about that is this task isn't, you don't need 100,000 followers to fill up a full-time roster of athletes. Like you might need 30 to 40 people to fund your life, right? Or for you to have a comfortable living. Maybe you need 50 or whatever. But if that is the case, like find your 100 people and know them so fucking well. And that is, we
had full-time rosters 3 years before this podcast ever started. I think it's important to point that out.
And before you had an Instagram account, and before, I guess the fallacy of all the shit we're talking about is, do you even need a giant following? Like, no. Does it have to be on social media? No. Maybe you live in this one town and the biggest gym there are these people, and like, How many people in your town do you know? Or if you're a personal trainer, how do you get to know more of those people? Do they actually know you, or do they see pictures of you? Are you helping them on the side? Are you, like, obviously this doesn't only apply to online. Obviously this doesn't only apply to Instagram. But
I love Gary Vee.
I know you do.
But how many fitness people also love Gary Vee? A lot of them.
A bajillion.
Because his message is work hard, which is something that is so much a core value of most people who've made it in fitness in some way, and most athletes. So I think a lot of them follow him and they take cues from him on social media. But I only do to a limited extent, because Gary Vee came up selling wine, and acquiring and helping businesses and investing in businesses that are largely selling products. And what we are and what fitness is almost completely a service industry, not a product industry. And you can't approach it in exactly the same way if you're not providing a sense of community and value to individuals, especially 100% if you want to be a coach, then you're missing. And I still think to this day that word of mouth is probably the most effective. It looks different, word of mouth in 2017 than it did in 1999. But word of mouth is probably still the most effective tool you can have as a coach, because word of mouth now gets out on Reddit. Word of mouth gets out on someone's Facebook posts. Word of mouth can go out on Twitter. Word of mouth for us was Matt Ogus talking positively about us on a YouTube channel to 100,000 people, and that was what catapulted us. It wasn't just getting, a certain level of followers. We had people who we did right by, who wanted to put the word out because they appreciated what we did. On the forums, there was people posting about 3DMJ all the time, and people rating each other's businesses.
Still are on Reddit.
Yep.
One of my guys is super big in Reddit. And you're doing AMA, Bert, right?
Yeah, I did it a few days ago. It was actually quite good. It's crazy because everyone's like, it's the jungle in there. Be careful, right? And no, it's like, it was quite refreshing. Like, and I think a lot of this goes back to what Eric has mentioned, that I think what people really respect about us as a company and its individuals is the fact that as we've made it, we've stayed to our mission statement. Like, what a lot of people will do is they kind of make it and they're like, "Ooh, I got like this, they're trying to send me one of those waist trainers. Fuck it, I'm gonna do it. Let's do this. Like, let's make a little cash, right?" And that's the one thing that, I think people have noticed about Eric, is that, he's the same old Eric that he was 5 years ago in a way. Surely he's evolved, but he's stayed true to his mission statement. And the same thing with myself. And it was crazy because the Wild West, it was supposed to be Reddit, just wasn't. Pretty much everyone who was there, and they were engaged and they were respectful, and I felt appreciated. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've grown in that manner, and we've grown in that manner, and it can be tempting at times, but like, don't fucking do it, because like, again, before you know it, there's gonna be some other hot chick who is 5 years younger than you who's gonna show up, and she's gonna get that waist trainer sent to her, not you. So that's the other thing too, right? For your billboard is your body, and that shit goes, right? If you want this career. Yes, there's a fitness, you're right. There's there's probably a good couple decades where it actually improves over time, but at some point it's not going to keep improving. Yeah.
Look at your boy Boris Shaiko on Instagram now, going with the times. He's 70, I think. And, he's making moves, and he's seen as the godfather of like Russian powerlifting. And he's connecting with all kinds of people in different generations of fitness and doing it right. And that just goes to show you that it's not necessarily, oh, no one's going to listen to you when you're old. It's just, well, maybe if you don't make your entire mission statement built on the fact that you look good with your shirt off, you can actually have an extended career. And to go back to what Berto was saying, I think it's so true. Like, if you don't come into the game with a solid mission statement and knowing where you're trying to go and knowing the direction, it is much harder to discern which opportunities you should say no or say yes to. Like, a ton of opportunities come my way, and I've said yes to a lot, but each time it's been an easy decision, because right out the gate, I know, does this align with the 3D Muscle Journey values and mission statement? If no, it's no thanks. Easy. Doesn't matter how much money or what connections it could have, because I know it's just going to be hurtful in the long run. It's not going to help me get to where I'm trying to go, period. So it's a no. Doesn't matter. And then after that, the only decision I have to make is, okay, is this someone I want to partner with? Do I trust this person? And that's something that is much more to do with just individual interactions and whether I think they have the resources and the knowledge and the background and the know-how to do what the opportunity is hopefully can do, So I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I think all three of us have a pretty solid mission statement and idea where we're trying to go. But for me, it feels like making decisions on what to say yes or no to is easy because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that we bash on people making money with their shirts off all the fucking time, but we're not really, though. It's the same as what you just said is like, but do you have a plan, right? So if, like right now, Berto's prepping. So the physique it's not the billboard and it's not everything I live for, but the updates are that's part of our sport. It's like someone doing 1RM testing in powerlifting is the same as Berto taking photos in his trunks, right? And so there is obviously a time and a place for that, and there is some have the proof of your pudding or whatever, but that's not the only reason people follow Bert. It's not every single post, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's a lot of what Bert does is education. A lot of what you do is providing perspective for coaches, for athletes, whatever. And that's, I know we've talked about Eric too, where you do one swipe through someone's Instagram feed and it's some girl, you see both her butt cheeks in her face, every photo, all the way down with the big arch, and or you see some dude in his abs, anything he's holding or selling, or every single photo, never a shirt. And it's like, that's the problem, is you have no long game. Or what if it is like, I'm prepping now, I know I'm going to take my pictures now because as I come out of it, what is my plan? What is my business built on? Why would people hire me? Like a fitness model career is only so long technically, or only so many shoots or whatever. But do you have the plan? And maybe your plan is sell these other people's things for now while I create my coaching business on the side. Okay, now I want to start my coaching business, so I really need to put out a lot of content that's useful. It shows I'm good as a coach and I can do this. And then now that I have enough money for my coaching business, on the side I can create my long-term products that will create that passive income for me. Like, it's always in these steps and within a plan. But if your plan is look good naked for life, like, what happens when Instagram breaks or you get in a car wreck or whatever,
Well, there's a big difference between using your physique achievements or the changes in your physique to support your mission statement and not having a mission statement, but posing pictures of an impressive physique and then hoping that gets you somewhere. Because you're damn right. When I do get back on stage, you're going to see pictures of me in my best shape.
Yeah.
And I used to post them all the time, and you can find tons of pictures of me online of me in contest condition. And Berto's doing the same thing. Jeff does the same thing. Brad does the same thing. We all do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's to show you that we have credibility as competitors, that we walk the walk as coaches, and that we've experienced what our athletes have experienced. So it gives us a unique angle. It's all you'll never see, here's a great example of not having consistency that I'm talking about. And this has become like a joke that everyone talks about. Some chick or dude who's wearing next to nothing, who has a great body, and then the post below it is some kind of inspirational quote that has to do with, becoming your best self or something. And like, if you were to read the quote and just guess what the picture above it would be, you'd think it'd be one of those inspirational posters, or maybe something like some guy looking out over a horizon or something else. But you look up and it looks like something either semi-pornographic or this doesn't match. I don't see the consistency. Mm-hmm. And the whole reason the person is writing that is because they don't want to feel like they're selling out. So they're going, right, I'm doing the picture that I know will get a lot of followers, but I'm going to say something that feels real, because I feel guilty about putting just a picture with no substance to it. But if you read a picture of Berto, where he has his shirt off and he's looking absolutely shredded, he's talking about something directly relevant to the picture in service of the mission statement every time. There is some instructional purpose, like this is after a carbohydrate refeed. Swipe right. Now you can see me depleted. See, if you actually do a carbohydrate load in the right conditions in the right way, it can make a difference. Or here's what, same body weight, however, I've eaten up into the show and you can see my condition looks better or whatever. Like there's always a purpose to it. Or even just you're a competitor and it's a physique update just to show, hey, I'm making progress. But you're actually saying, hey, here are my current lifts. I've been training for this long. It's taken me this long to get here. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. As cliche as that is, it's still instructional in some way and serves a mission statement versus the other examples. Even though the picture might be quite similar, one actually has consistency and purpose, and the other one is just because it is effective at getting more numbers to go up that won't actually get you more engagement.
And see, here's the thing. Whenever, my biggest, hope when I post something is, I still love being an athlete. I absolutely love it. I love when shit gets hard and I have to push through that. And people who've seen me go through many preps, it's for them too, to show them like, hey, I'm getting better. That's what bodybuilding is about. But my biggest hope is that I will inspire people to perhaps not just rely on their talents, but look at or inspire just physique competitors or strength athletes to perhaps think about the fact that there might be a different way or a better way of doing something, because I am so stuck in my little corner that sometimes I think, I think the vast majority of people are doing it more or less 80-90% right. But that's just not the truth. So I hope sometimes, I posted a picture with Neil Tyson deGrasse, and I forgot what it said, but it was something y'all need science or something like that. And I was
Neil deGrasse
hoping,
Tyson, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, homie, I was hoping that that would make some waves, and then people would be like, "Who is this dude? Wow, he does this so differently than the vast majority of people. We need some science in our life too." So yeah, that's honestly at the end of the day, is an athlete, the athlete side of me. I want to change the way the game is played and for the better. That is, if I can say that I never won a world championship, never won another pro show, but you left things better than how you found them. That's our mission statement right there. That's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Bird.
That's how I feel about the show. It was never. I think the podcast is so fucking dear to me, I guess, because I know it was the first thing that I got to build when I came on as a coach. But it was more like I was y'all's people. I guess I technically still are people, right? I was the people y'all. I didn't catch y'all on the forums, but I got you on YouTube, right? I never saw YouTube till 2012, and you had already been on Matt's channel, Eric, and I'd seen Matt's videos, and then I started watching 3D and all that. So I was y'all's people, and it was one of those like you said, Eric, you don't have time to respond to all the comments or whatever, right? And then there became a time where it was as one of 3D's people, it's obvious they don't have time to make these videos anymore. But not only at the same time, they don't have time to edit and film all this shit. At the same time, we're now 5 years wiser with just years and years of experience combined with all these topics we talk to each other about. And every meeting we'd have, I'm like, man, if this was recorded, And that's one way where I know people get discouraged by the numbers, but Libsyn shit, the podcasting, you can't go, I'm sure soon enough you will, but you can't go to iTunes for the last 5 years and be like, well, how many followers do they have? Da-da-da. But our podcast right now as a team is has the highest number of, was it consumption? Highest, what do I say?
Downloads?
Consumers? Like more people
Viewers?
watch the podcast. No, more people listen to the podcast than view videos now because we don't make as many of those because our Instagram is such short. Our strength now is in the conversation. Our strength is in the experience as a team. And where was I going with all that? It's that this is what humanizes us as a team, and it makes me so fucking proud because I'm not competing right now for a long time. I don't have the physique to say I'm a bodybuilding coach, check it out. I don't have that, but what I do have is my work ethic, and I love training, and that'll just always be on my little Instagram or whatever, and I don't care. But what else I have is I have access to you guys, and I don't ever shut up. And this podcast is a way to maximize my strengths and this helps me as a coach to talk to you guys every week, you know? I know we work together or whatever, but like if Berto's aim is to help people with all that stuff that he just talked about, my aim was like, there's so much shit that goes on in bodybuilding that needs a deep conversation because I didn't know how bad it could get. I didn't know how deep it could get. I didn't know there's so much shit that I didn't know because a lot of it is marketing in the fitness industry and a lot of it is look at me, but it's like I'm alone and as a hermit in my house because I don't know how to deal with what's happening, and I'm not alone. And I think that there's a lot of people that feel very alone, and this is the closest thing I think that people can get to having like if you live in a small town or some other place where you don't have access to your bromance bodybuilding friend, like how do you know about these things and learn to it and have someone to relate to and know that it's okay, that it ends at some point, that there's other ways to go about it, you know? And I think that was my mission with the podcast. So within the big global mission, I guess what I'm trying to illustrate is like Bert has his mission on his Instagram. We have our business mission, and like my mission with this podcast was to make what I never had. And I think we're all doing well because it all aligns with the core, like 3D. This is what we have to do for these people. Yeah.
And people sense that we give a fuck. They do. They do. Because they do. Especially if they've been on the ride for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's one thing with your community, your following, that you just never do. Don't like ever underestimate them and feel like you can get away with some shit. Because if you brought them up right, yeah, they're gonna jump off that ship right away. And that's where a lot of people lose. You know, that's where you see a lot of those 2-3 year careers in the fitness industry is they kind of sucker punch their peeps, and you know, eventually they catch on. Don't underestimate your peeps, and that's one thing we do a very good job of. We respect our people, we really do, and they sense that we do care. We can respond to every single comment and message that's sent to us, but damn it, we're trying to make this place a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything you do matters. I think that's something to remind yourself to some degree. And unless you're Eminem and you've built a brand based on not giving a fuck, you have to literally give a fuck. And you know, the funny, ironic part about that is that if Eminem was to ever start giving a fuck too much, he would alienate his brand because he's built them on not giving a fuck. Yeah. Ironically. Yeah. But no, I totally agree with Berto. Like, yeah, it is a service industry. You're providing value, and everything you do matters, and you have to stay true. And not only will you feel better about it as a person, but that will bleed out everywhere. And I think, I mean that in a positive way. It sounded like I meant like bleed out and die, but it'll positively affect you. And I think, like, just like building a physique takes a long time, and like all the sustainability issues are the main problem in fitness. Like, people are always looking for the quick fix. Like, you have to think about a career as when you're talking about your career, not quick ways to get moving, or you can literally harm your ability to stay in the game in the long term.
Snap your shit up.
But yeah, the waist trainer was like the best thing, right? Where it's like, that was the best example I've heard. It's just so obvious when it's like, you work hard, you train in the gym, we train in the gym, you need a quick buck, you wear a waist trainer, and then you're fucked. You can't take that back if there's pictures of you on the internet in a waist trainer. You know, just like that girl who here's my fitness journey, I'm getting better. I look good now I'm naked all the time. And you know, here's my boobs, and you're just like, what? You know, all these people that
it's always been around too.
Yeah.
Like, the reputation overnight that T Nation got, and Berto remember this probably, and some other people have been around in the 90s. Like, T Nation was seen as a legit place to read awesome information, and then they started having these super selly outy articles where it was like, yeah, and you need to buy Anaconda, and by the way, it's like $100 per 30 servings, and you need to uber dose all these, you know, supplements. And it became we have articles, but they're all really based on just trying to get you to purchase our stuff. And then all of a sudden, writing for T Nation became seen as like an anti-evidence based thing to do, and all the writers got lumped in together as like snake oil salesmen. And to be fair, many of them were, but many of them also were not.
Yeah.
And like, Dan John, has written a ton of stuff for T Nation, as well as I think Brett Contreras and Brad have both written an article, or two. And like, but there was so many like reputations that got permanently stained from doing stuff like that before there was even social media. It can happen so much faster now, and with less effort, you can really screw up, and sell out. But it's the same thing that's always been happening. The 10-minute, the Mike Chang approach can get you, regardless of what decade it is,
Yeah. Well, and also I think
not that Mike Chang had a reputation before the six-pack shortcuts.
No, but it's but the difference, hopefully, that what I find comforting is that like we're talking to our people, so we know that what we want, like the people that do want to sell waist trainers like aren't looking for our opinion on this shit, right? And so like when you brought up Mike Chang,
examples too.
Yeah, and when you bring up Mike Chang, like six-pack shortcuts, waist trainers, whatever, it's like they do need a shit ton of people. They do need those big giant followings. But if you want to be the best personal trainer in your city, if you want to be the online coach that does good work and has enough money to live a comfortable life, like, you don't need all that stupid shit. That's all.
Or just little things like plagiarizing, like that's huge. It's like people have been caught with that. They're like, shit, I need to put something out. I'm kind of stuck. Let me just put this out here. Oh, that looks very similar to what this person said like 2 weeks ago. Like stuff like that. Like do the right thing. Yeah. I think
it can sometimes it's not as obvious as a waist trainer or as a six-pack shortcuts. It can be like a death by 1,000 cuts, where you just look up, like one day, 10 years later, you look back and you go, oh my God, my brand is completely different, and all the things I'm trying to sell or make a living from today, none of my audience wants that anymore, or the way I'm promoting myself doesn't even match what I'm putting out there, or the following I cultivated for a decade is now different than what I'm trying to market to. And I think that can happen just from being a little too excited about things and not really considering whether or not it goes with your mission statement. Like, especially like, I'll give an example of, because my little semi-separate brand from 3DMJ, or my own archetype, is one who's heavily involved in science. So before I endorse something, I have to really think about whether I think this will stand the test of time, whether it's valid, whether it'll be actually make a difference. Not that I can't be wrong, of course I can, and that's kind of part of the brand too, is science evolves. But if I jump on, like, I'll give an example, and not to pick on Lane, but like the metabolic damage thing, like that was a legitimate hypothesis he had and something he saw in his clients, and a lot of us talked about, and reverse dieting and all that. But in many ways that really backfired, because you could argue that he kind of jumped the gun and overstated some things and used certain terminology, and then attached that to products that sold, and gave the impression that he was out for a quick buck. I don't think that's the case. And in fact, I know it's not from talking to him. And, I think we've had very many similar observations. It's just, but if you pull the trigger on something too quick, that can bite you in the ass if you just haven't thought about how this will be received. Could I be wrong? Is there a better way to do this? Should I roll this out slower? What do I want to do with this? Should I put more caution around the statement? Like all those things, and does it align with my mission statement? Like all those things have to be considered, because sometimes that can, those slow cuts can add up, and it can hurt you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And when you say mission statement too, like it is definitely good to have, especially as a company, right? It's good that we have one. Obviously, we're all on the same page or whatever. But as an individual, there's shit that you just know. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, use your, like,
you should know.
Well, no, I mean, because if you're kind of...
It's a gut feeling. You should go back to high school and think about, like, how you lived as an adolescent. You're like, fuck, I could have been... I think we all can kind of say, to a certain extent, it's like, I knew that wasn't me, but, like, I went for it anyways because...
So-and-so was cool. Yeah, it was cool to do it. Yeah. I wore those fucking bongo jeans, and, yeah. Now there's pictures like that kind of.
Yeah. When I say should, I mean like if you're listening to this right now and you're trying to make a career and you're thinking, shit, I don't really have a mission statement, then disconnect the internet, hang out with yourself for a while, and sit there and figure out, why do I get up in the morning? What am I trying to do? Where do I want to be in 5 years, 10 years? Who am I trying to help? What am I trying to accomplish? And you need to be able to answer those questions with clarity. And if you can't yet, that's fine. But stop everything you're doing and answer those questions, or you're going to be putting a lot of work in a lot of different directions. It doesn't actually take you anywhere.
Yeah.
Or takes you in a direction that might actually be harmful to when you actually sit down and think about it and go, damn it, I've been doing something that's actually counter to that.
Yeah. And it's okay not to know either. It's better to not know, hang back, experiment a little, than it is to go full bore on something that you're like, shit, that was not me. But like there's room in life for dabbling, and like Bert said, there's no it would be better that you waited till something became very clear, for the most part, especially in the internet age, right? Because there's stuff you can't delete, you can't unsay, you can't untype on some things, right? And yeah, spending time alone with yourself. If you want to be that type of person, right? We're not saying that everyone needs to do this, but if you are the person that wants to make a living in something or make a big movement or have a stand in this day and age, if you do feel like that is your path, you do need to learn how to be alone and be your own person. And the mission statement makes the mission. If you have no mission, then like, what the fuck?
I totally agree.
Play to your strengths. I think that's a big one too. Like, don't try to be something that's just not you. That's not. You might not even like your talent all the time. You're like, oh, fuck, I want to be this, but this is what I have a knack for.
I do.
So, but we need you to talk, so keep talking.
Yeah, I totally. That's where Gary Vee's right. You know, play to your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses that much, because if you're typically when you're playing and you're trying to correct your weaknesses, not that, like, yeah, there are times and a place to do that, especially athletically or in terms of your business. But as far as the branding, you know, be the best you, you know, it'll actually help you grow as a person. You don't need to hide aspects of yourself at all, but I think leading with your strengths and going with the path of least resistance as far as like the medium you present yourself on now, because then you can it actually becomes easier to keep up with the pace of social media and the demands of what you need to do. And you'll actually enjoy it, but you'll burn out real quick if you try to follow someone else's archetype that's based on their personality and how that interacts with the social media sphere out there, you know? Yeah,
a lot of the pain in people, like who we say are the quick turnarounds, like, okay, I'm going to go hard for a year or two, and they're like, oh shit, this isn't for me, I need to go get a real job. A big pain, I feel like, is that medium thing, right? You think fitness is so giant on Instagram, so you think Instagram is the only way that you can get somewhere, when that's not the case. I mean, again, I feel like podcasting has been a huge breakthrough for me. Like, for example, Eric Cressy and Tony Gentlecore, phenomenal strength and conditioning blogs. Like, they're not in their shirts off. Like, you barely see them. They're sharing words, and they're sharing videos of their athletes, and they're, you know, they share every day, but on their own little thing. You know,
Greg
like
Knuckles has huge views on his website. Is one of the most followed in its area. You know, and he gets tons of readers
in the Olympic lifting space. I mean, they're just taking over. And like Eric, you with your with mass, with the pyramids, like the long form shit that a lot of people aren't willing to write, or that they can't write in that manner. But again, so many people early on are like, well, fitness is on Instagram. It's like, you know, if that's not your thing, and to be opposite of that, there's a lot of people that I've gone to expos and met that are like Insta famous, and I'm like, oh, I know why you don't do videos on YouTube. Like, because in person and talking, it's like you need to take your pictures and your snapshots because they don't have the personality for video. Mm-hmm. So,
and you know, funny thing about the people who we were kind of saying you don't want to do this, where you get to the point where you have a lot of followers, but you don't have a mission statement, and you're just waiting for opportunities to come to you. Like, let's be legit. Like, 99.9% of people can't even do that. Yeah. Like, you have to just happen to have amazing genetics and a hard work ethic and have been lifting for a long time, or some combination of those factors, or drugs, or some combination.
Or a lot of money to start.
Yeah, like, like that. Yeah, that would be. You can't even do it wrong in 99% of the cases to get to that point where you have a ton of followers and then not have a mission statement. Like most of the time, if you try to follow that model of I have a pretty good body, or I'm pretty strong, or I have a kind of a cool video setup or whatever, you'll get some followers, but not even nearly the amount as if you actually had a strategy and a mission statement. Like it's the rare person who can just stumble onto having a ton of followers because they're just that impressive with their body. Even if you could get there, that's still not ideal. They'd be doing even better if they actually had a clear purpose that they were driving that with their accolades. So,
yeah. Berto, what do you think, dude?
I think we've been very useful to our people today, and they will be like, that's why these 3D Muscle Journey peeps rock. They are who we think they are, right?
We are who they think we are, I think.
Well, I think, therefore, I am, we are who we are, we think.
Yeah.
We're done.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah?
I don't know. You feel done, Eric?
That sounds weird. Do I feel done?
Like, did you have more to say? That was like a weird thing. I really just meant to ask Bert how he was feeling, but then he kind of sounded like a closer right there. So.
I think, I mean, we could do like a takeaways if you want.
All right, you want to do takeaways? Hold on.
I like how I said we could do a takeaways, and it's like, go ahead and do it.
I don't know what I wanted. I feel like I said what I said.
They didn't already took away what they're supposed to take?
I said what I said.
No, I mean, honestly, it's just like have a plan and be true to it, and then be aware and be able to adapt to the way mediums change.
Good.
That's all I got.
Right.
Did you say Bert?
Bert, what do you want to say?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't say that, but go ahead. Give me a takeaway.
Right. It's, I think, very similar to the mistakes that people make with their physique. They want it all now, and they kind of end up in the same place. And it helps out to have a goal, to have a plan, and approach it in that manner. So, yeah.
And my only takeaway would be like that we're still figuring it out. This is where we're at now. We would have done this interview or this talk differently 3 years ago, and it'll be differently there. Just also the same with your physique, because you'll never figure it all out. So you may as well play with it and do the best you can.
Hey everybody, it's Eric Helms. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. As you know, at 3DMJ, we promote evidence-based approaches to the lifting community. If that's something you want to dive deeper into, I'd encourage you to check out my research review, Monthly Applications in Strength Sport, or for short, MASS. This is a review that myself, Dr. Mike Zerdos, and Greg Knuckles put out every month. We cover the latest research publications that are applicable to strength and physique athletes, or anyone who's looking to get stronger or improve their body comp. Our content is in both written and video format. For more information on how to subscribe, check out 3dmusclejourney.com/mass. That's 3dmusclejourney.com/MASS for further details. Thanks for tuning in.